Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to a brand new Stargirl breakdown and review. Now this is for episode 9 titled Brainwave, and I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It didn't obviously have a whole bunch of action in it or anything like that, but what I really enjoyed about it is getting a lot more of Brainwave Jr.'s story, really coming into his powers. I really enjoyed Jake Austin Walker's performance this episode, and also it just felt like a really well-paced episode, which actually contained a lot of things going on at the same time. Several different things from the icicle stuff, which was towards the end of the episode, but that really got crazy. New JSA stuff as well, which obviously was related to the Brainwave Jr. things, and just a whole bunch more. I feel like with the end of this episode, it really set up some excitement for the following week's episode, and all round, honestly, this was one of my favorite episodes, even without any of the amazing choreography that Stargirl has done with their great battles, whether that's between Stargirl and the New JSA versus Sportsmaster and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I love that stuff, but this episode, I don't know, it felt like a really good seamless episode. So go ahead and like this video, guys, to show your support for the channel, but also for your excitement for Stargirl. And of course, make sure you subscribe with post notifications turned on to make sure you never miss out on a single video. And hey, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter already or Instagram, make sure you click those links down in the description and follow me. Why not? I barely ever plug Twitter and stuff, but it'd be great to get some more of you guys in my circle on Twitter. And also, I do have a Discord server. A lot of you have joined that. I know that I'm plugging quite a bit, but it's great seeing more of you join the Discord community, talking to you guys in voice chats. But hey, let's get into the episode with what started with an incredible introduction in my mind. I just love stuff like this. I'm sure you guys do as well. Whenever there's flashback kind of stuff and we get a bit more insight into, I guess, this iteration's version of Brainwave's origin, I just love little peeks like that. So we saw the beginning with Brainwave getting mugged, using his powers for the first time to defend himself, going from this kind of extremely afraid, which he would be really in any mugging, but you know, quite this timid guy, this timid scientist, if you will, to a power complexed Brainwave we know today. It's just such an interesting contrast to that guy we do know today, who is, so, as he put it himself through the several flashbacks, he feels very confident, and if not in present day, in the scenes we've seen him in before he even got in his coma, very overconfident, very powerful, and yeah, you kind of would be if you could telekinetically move things with your mind and read other people's minds. And so Henry's journey kind of continued off from the end of last episode, who has since run home after seeing Courtney and Cindy fight. He puts the day 1 VHS tape in, and if you guys remember my review last week, I was saying I'm dying to know what's on those tapes, and yeah, it didn't really occur to me that it could have been Brainwave documenting and talking about his experience of killing the man with his Brainwave powers. He was going on about these theoretical methods of expanding cerebral capacity, which, you know, was actually his, you know, scientific work. It was all deemed too extreme, and his funding was denied, and in a very villain cliche way, you know, performed the trial on himself, and so he started getting those powers. The headaches were increasing, and that's when he started reading minds. Just kind of like how we're seeing this happen with Henry King Jr. this season, very slowly unfold throughout these 9 episodes so far. However, this is where stuff got like quite disturbing, and you kind of really got the DNA of who Brainwave, Henry Jr.'s father, is, and that's when these migraines started going away after silencing the guy's thoughts, and that's through killing them, and that's when Henry looked at this all very dumbfounded, and you know, you can't blame him. This is a huge revelation, but what I was thinking the whole time is, and this was what I was kind of anticipating most about not only Henry King Jr.'s story, but this episode, is where is this character going to end up? Like, they really were playing with that, and I know he's Brainwave Jr. in the comics, but you never quite know what they're going to do. However, that end of the episode, damn. I was really hoping, Henry, I was really hoping you'd turn to the light side of the Force. But moving onwards and upwards, we had Courtney talking about how scared Henry was, obviously with her interaction with him at the end of last episode, and just kind of knowing how he has no idea what's going on with himself, and, you know, she heard his voice inside her head. He was lonely, confused, sad. This is what I mean. It kind of all contributes to the idea of how Henry could very much so not reflect or adhere to your father's philosophies on you know, being an evil supervillain. You don't have to be what Cindy turned out to be, and that was kind of a reflection of her father. And that's what I think this episode did a very good job of, you know, and we'll get to these scenes between Courtney and Henry and several other factors, you know, playing in with what his father was saying about people being monsters. It really did show this kind of internal conflict, you know, that between classical light and dark. And, you know, I like that line from Courtney as well in this episode. It's like, I know deep down you know what the right thing to do is, and I think everyone does in a way, and that's kind of what makes all of this moral dilemma, if you will, that much more interesting for this character. And also, this episode, I loved it for another thing, because this upcoming moment revealed something really awesome, and I'm sure quite a lot of you spotted this as well, but you may not have, and that is in that moment when Pat was very quiet, because he was kind of more concerned about what the ISA has planned. You know, the best scenario for Pat is that they came to Blue Valley to hide, you know, go underground and disappear after they killed the JSA 10 years ago, considering that is quite big news, and maybe other superheroes could have been after them, but no, since they have Dr. Ito, aka Dragon King, they're definitely planning something, and we all know that is Project New America. But this is when Courtney asks about how Pat knows about how even Dr. Ito is still alive, and that's when he drops that Sylvester and he were a part of this other team before they joined the Justice Society of America, called the Seven Soldiers of Victory. Now, this was a really cool Easter eggy moment. This very much so applies to Justin the Janitor, as we all know, who is Shining Knight, and you could actually see him in that photo with the very obvious Shining Knight armor, but we also had Vigilante there, the Crimson Avenger, Wing. You can even see Stripesy. This very much so mirrors that other photo I've shown you guys that we saw in the first episode, I believe it was, with Stripesy and the Star-Spangled Kid defeating Dr. Weird. But another really cool moment in this as well, even though they didn't reference the actual names, now I'll get into that in a second, Courtney referenced, they're like Robin Hood. You could also see the Green Arrow and Speedy there in the photo as well, which is really, 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 really awesome. They were, of course, a part of the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which, you know, is this photo team up, if you will. And as for the reason as to why they didn't say those names, you have to think it's down to kind of like a illegal-esque kind of thing. This has very much so been vocalized before, even by, for example, Mark Guggenheim and Crisis stuff. You know, it's quite ridiculous what the extent of legal stuff can do to things like this. For example, the Crisis on Infinite Earths title intro sequence, if you will, you know, you had the characters for like each letter of Crisis or whatever it was, and they didn't use the actual Green Arrow, Oliver Queen's face, they just used the arrow for some of it. Well, that was because of some kind of legal issue to do with the show and this, that, and the other. So, similar thing here, maybe when they filmed this, because Stargirl, believe it or not, was filmed a long ass time ago, and was meant to come out last year, I believe it was, and you could argue maybe it was something to do with Green Arrow, obviously the Arrow TV show being on at the same time. Either way, it is probably down to something like that. Nothing major, but just, yeah, it is still cool that we could see Green Arrow and Speedy in this. Now, it is quite an old photo. You would have to think that the Green Arrow in this, it might be fairly old, but he could still be running out there. Pat said he lost contact, and it's like, really? You lose contact with, like, actual superheroes like Green Arrow or Vigilantes, if you will? But either way, awesome world building there. I love it, and I hope to see really major stuff come out like this in the future of the show, because there's so much they can do with this, and I feel like they're doing a fantastic job in throwing little gems here and there like this in the show. But speaking about Justin the Janitor, who was actually featured in that photo, we had that moment with him holding the cosmic staff, which was really just his mop, and that was like, wait, what's going on here? Now, I think what's going on with Justin, and this has been depicted throughout the whole season, is that he kind of acts like somebody who has maybe some kind of cognitive issue, like something like where he remembers something for a minute and then he stares out into space into the next kind of thing, and it's like he's forgetting what he's even doing in that moment. So I think that this is his memories from beforehand in his past kind of bleeding through into like that mop with the cosmic staff. So I think this is just the actualization of Shining Knight slowly seeping through, but for now he hasn't quite fully actualized yet, for lack of a better word. He's slowly getting there, and we're going to get some awesome stuff with that, I'm sure, but for now, yeah, it's just slowly but surely trickling along. In other news, picking up from last episode as well, Beth was doing some Shiv or Cindy recon, if you will, and supposedly Cindy has withdrawn from Blue Valley High School to study overseas with her mother, which couldn't be more of a lie, because as we know, she got dragged under the sewer and she's chilling in a cell in Dragon King's headquarters, and she's just like, I'm gonna kill you like I killed Mum. Dragon King just shuts her down through like closing a little flap on the door. I swear all Dragon King does is kind of like ponder over the table or whatever plans he's got on there. I swear, like most scenes, he's just staring at the table and it's just like, yes, my evil plan is coming to fruition. Okay, ignore that. I don't know what that was. But yeah, this was as expected, his next comment, because he's all about getting Henry to power his machine as he has got his telepathic abilities. Now, this is where we got a bunch of Henry King Jr. scenes going on. So he was going ham on the tapes. He now doesn't exactly look frightened as he did earlier on in the episode, but more fascinated. This was all a really cool montage initially with him practicing on using his powers to move a can to then levitating multiple items. And once again, just kind of diving into the psyche of Henry King himself, Brainwave, you had that moment where he was talking about how his father held him by the ankles over that well, and he's felt that way his entire life, utterly powerless until now. And that, as I said, that goes into what I was saying earlier with how overconfident he is now and how powerful, and even this power complex that he has. But on day 31, Brainwave rendered a man blind after reading his mind on the subway after, he was staring at a woman having such ugly thoughts. I found this part really compelling because I feel like this really dives purely into that DNA that is Brainwave and what makes him a villain, because you can still choose one way or the other, but he obviously decided to lean into hate and resentment of people because of what he picked up with their thoughts. So this is when the headaches come in, like the migraines we see them have, or should I say Henry have. So as he exited the subway, he telekinetically pushed that man in front of a car, and as soon as that was over, or that guy's life was over should I say, he felt better until he read the next mind and the next, whether that was jealousy, rage, spite, deviance, no matter whose mind he peered into, vile thoughts filled up their brains, and in turn, that's when he got kind of migraines and, had this kind of motto of his, and that's when he realized the truth of humanity, that at their very core, people are monsters, and he hates them. And I was like, wow, this is so dark and awesome at the same time, but I was also thinking, Henry, it doesn't have to be that way for you, man. And obviously that was that kind of moment that reflected with Courtney later, like in how if you look a little bit deeper, not everyone is like that. It's often with a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, people say ugly things, but that doesn't exactly define them as a monster or condemn them. So it's very interesting, yet again, the tackle or the kind of debate, if you will, of light and dark here. And it's very obvious that Henry is kind of a good guy deep down, but the thing that was unfolding throughout this episode is that he kept getting the wrong things happening to him. I feel like Courtney was the only positive thing in this recent time for him with what she said, but for example, you had the maid, he read the maid's mind saying he probably is better off if he died, which kind of proves his father's point. Everyone kind of has these toxic thoughts, which is, as a result, leading Henry into this conclusion that people are indeed monsters, and maybe he may just turn out just like his dad, which is when Brainwave contacts him, and I was getting very excited in this moment. On the other side of things, Yolanda wasn't happy with Courtney's suggestion on recruiting Henry. Obviously, Rick, is being Rick. At this point, I'm like, Rick, just chill, man. I know he's meant to be angry. That's a part of his character, but it's just like, dude, go on, dial it back a bit. But yeah, Beth was being an optimist and thinking Henry could have changed, but Rick and Yolanda are just like, no. Sometime later after this as well, we had Beth and Rick go to Pat. They were talking about Courtney wanting to recruit Henry, which is this classic anti-Pat plan. But either way, this whole point was trying to look into the underground network more in Blue Valley and how the Injustice Society are using that. But another important thing behind this is that Rick didn't want to help Beth do that. He was more looking into decoding his father's journal so he can find out more truth behind that, which is like another tiny little kind of subplot that is trickling along the side, which hopefully we'll find out the answers to very, very soon. But going back to the hospital, this is where stuff is really ramping up for Henry. He's overwhelmed of reading people's minds, and you really do have to put yourself in his position, like reading everyone's thoughts being pretty bad thoughts, especially from the example we got with this moment in this episode. It kind of would make you resent people, like that moment when Brainwave said on that tape, I hate people. Like, you kind of understand how it would get like that. I am hoping, despite what happened at the end of the episode, that there is still some, I don't know, the chance that Henry could be good, because, I mean, that ending was pretty definitive, I suppose, but he can still come back from it. I know he murdered someone, and we'll talk more about this in a second, but, as Courtney said herself, life isn't that black and white, Henry. People can be bad, but people can be good too. But let's talk about Yolanda for a second, because she decided this, talking about literally bad things happening, which is kind of egging Henry just to go to the side of villainy even more this episode. I just wish positive things kept happening, so maybe he would be like, you know what, there is good in people. I'm not going to be like my dad, but yeah, Yolanda had to come along, freaking nice one, got her claws out, threatened Henry. Henry was just like, WTF, like, you really think... And this is something I have a problem with as well. Exactly what Henry said when she was like, I'll kill you. And he was like, you really think I deserve death for that, really. As I've said in previous videos as well, I'm pretty sure Henry didn't do it. It was Cindy. I think she took his phone, sent it to herself, and exposed it. And I think he was even going to say it in that moment before she freaking jumped out the window. But yeah, like Yolanda, there's a lot of rage. I mean, these are kids. This is kind of what makes this show so interesting. We've got kids who could be very impulsive, emotional, being superheroes. And with that horrible thing that Yolanda did experience, you might impulsively think, I wish that person was dead or something like that. But this kind of goes to prove Courtney's point even more before. We all know Yolanda isn't like that, really. But people say things they don't mean, even things to that extent where it's like, I should kill you. But moving swiftly onwards, Dragon King attends the Injustice Society of America's headquarters, the little meeting there. Yet again, love the villainous dynamic between villains, if you will. I guess, they don't all get along, like the Justice League of America. That moment when Dragon King is just like, I get that we haven't all seen eye to eye in the past, but, I'm your ally with Project New America. But either way, to get to the point, he informs them that Henry is also a telepath, so the amplifier will be complete within the week, and they'll funnel Henry's telepathic abilities through it without having to rely on his father, and thus broadcasting them across 6 states, revealing the ultimate plan to be taking control of every fully developed mind within them, thus kind of carving out a new America, our America, their Project New America, if you will, with, people's minds being under their influence. They, imagine the things you could accomplish with that. They could literally forge their own version of the country. But then we had the continuation of the Chronicles of Barbara and Icicle. I mean, I feel like every episode I talk about, are they into each other? Or well, it's mainly just Icicle, I think, being into Barbara, because I think Barbara is a loyal Pat supporter. But either way, they keep playing at something there. And in this moment, Icicle explains, it was actually pretty cool that he just finished a project that he's been working on for years that took him all around the globe, to London, Tokyo, all over the States, but it cost him quite a lot of time away from his family and his son. Given everything he sacrificed, he thought that he would feel a sense of accomplishment. And this is the cliche kind of, if you get revenge, kill somebody who killed a loved one of yours, will you really feel that much better? You think you will until you do it, and you don't. And I believe in this moment he had, come to realize that he is now ticked off every single person who had something to do with the company that was responsible in one way or another for leading or contributing to the death of his wife. This is where he was invited over for dinner with his son, and this is where, like, wow, just think about it for a minute. Icicle is literally in Stargirl's home, and all of them are very none to the wiser about who is who until Courtney freaking gets that very, very piping hot dish out of the oven, hands it to Icicle, and he's literally just holding it, dishing it out, when that would be burning the living crap out of all of us, which, is a very obvious sign that, okay, maybe, I don't think this is far-fetched at all. You would be looking at him like, well, holy crap, could this be Icicle? And that's all there really was to those scenes. I mean, it was a very interesting and, wondering, what's going to happen here? And now Courtney and Pat know just a little bit more, or at least a good lead to follow off from this meal. And this also puts, an interesting story for Courtney and Cameron, because, Cameron's completely innocent in all of this, as of what we know. And obviously Courtney's going to be a bit, shying away from him from now on. But I think that will resume for them at some point, because I think Cameron really isn't going to be a reflection of the Icicle family in a way that Cindy is, and in a way that Henry may in the future become like his father. But we're gonna have to wait and see with that. And holy crap, guys, I was gonna mention this, but I decided to save it till now, with that moment where, typically, I mentioned this in my last review as well, Pat was saying to Barbara, there's something I should tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago. And I was like, God damn it, you're doing it again, and she's not gonna find out. But she did. And if you've been watching my reviews recently, I've been saying I think Mike would find out first, just because I don't know. Barbara, of course, could find out, but I don't see how a mother is going to support a 15-year-old girl going out against murderous supervillains, people who have literally wiped out worldwide famous superheroes like The Flash, Jay Garrick, and, that's crazy. So I'm very, very interested to see what happens after this moment. It was, of course, hilarious. The staff just tried to play dead, so it literally flomped on its side. I loved all of that. You had the funny face from Courtney. It was a very comedic moment, but I just don't know how they're going to get out of it if they really do describe everything that they're doing, that they're forming a new Justice Society of America, or are they going to play it off like, oh, this is just a cool little experiment? I mean, that would be a hard sell, but they may try and sell the stuff as a part of something else entirely rather than what they're actually doing. We're gonna have to wait and see, to be honest, but I am surprised. That was a surprise because I thought Mike would find out first. And ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about that final scene with Henry talking to his father's attorney. He read his mind, and yet again, we get a typical rotten human contributing to the philosophy of his father and how everyone is a monster. It's so typical. It's so typical. Henry has to get another example of how another human being is a cliche rotten person, because they were just faking these papers about cutting off the life support. This is when he started getting that migraine pain, and when he killed him, the migraine stopped. It's in a very similar kind of way to if you guys watched Jessica Jones. I cannot remember the character, but whenever he was around people who were just rotten people, he would have searing migraines. Very, 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 very similar kind of character thing there. And, I really hope that this doesn't define Henry. I know a lot of you are going to be like, I don't see how he's going to come back from this, but it could have been that moment where he did kind of accidentally, impulsively kill him in a way. It's kind of hard to analyze this because he was horrified at what he did. And this is, of course, when Henry King, his father, wakes up and it's just like, well, shit. Obviously, he probably felt like the proudest father in the world in that moment. To be honest, I'm actually low-key surprised that his father did wake up, because now, Dragon King has two people who could contribute to Project New America and his machine. Like, is he going to use Henry? Or is he going to use Brainwave? Because Brainwave would be game, would he not? That was the original plan. So, I'm curious as to what they're going to do there. Now you have two Brainwave-esque people walking around. And what is Henry going to do? Is this going to push him further away from the villainous side of things? Will it actually turn him off being more of a villain like his father? Or do you guys think that this will even bring him further into the philosophy his father has with, yeah, screw it, kill people, I hate people, kill the people who are rotten. Why not? It's only going to clean up the world. And maybe he might, but I hope not. I hope not. Henry, stay strong. Stay strong, my brother. But that was the episode, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can probably tell, I thought it was a really enjoyable episode. It didn't have to have a load of action in it. It just had so much going on in it. So many interesting developments. I think enough developments that were, sweet to the taste enough to put in an episode that it just felt like, oh, this is happening. Oh, that is happening. This is interesting. That is, so I felt like it was a very successful episode. I felt like the pacing was one of the best things about it. I was constantly, enjoying what they were heading to next with each scene, scattering the Henry stuff throughout the episode. So, guys, I want to ask you what you thought of it. Of course, as always, down in the comments below. Stargirl continues to impress. It continues to be one of my favorite DC TV shows right now. Obviously, Doom Patrol being my favorite, but if you were to count the CW DC TV shows or The Flash, with all of that in mind, I'm loving Stargirl. It's a very good thing, an exciting thing to look forward to every week. So, yeah, I really hope you liked the video, guys. If you did, I would really appreciate your like on the actual video. It takes 2 seconds of your time. Subscribe, of course, for more videos like this. Check out my previous videos that you may or may not be seeing on screen right now. Join my Discord server. It would be great to talk to more of you there. If you feel like supporting the channel more, I'd really appreciate that, and you can do so through clicking the join button, or maybe even checking out my Patreon. And of course, you get exclusive rewards such as channel emotes, Discord ranks, you name it. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Hope you're all staying safe as well, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.